And so one day I literally just Googled stories about the Hunger Games, and it led me to fanfiction.net. And I was like, okay, so I'm not the weird one. Like I'm pretty normal for this, which is ironic in my like line of thinking, right? Surrounding fanfic and just like society's perception of it. But I never looked back after that. It was an incredibly like validating moment to know that I wasn't the only one who had thought about these fictional characters.
My name is KJ, and you're listening to the Supernatural Opinions podcast, where some things in this world are supernatural. My pronouns are she, they, and this is the podcast where I talk to my fellow Supernatural fans about Supernatural, and we share our Supernatural opinions. This week we're going to be talking about fandom and fanfiction, and this is a reminder that discussion episodes are open to all seasons and episodes, and this will definitely contain spoilers from episodes, including and beyond last week's episode, which was, hang on, hold please, I don't remember what the last episode was. Yes, I do. Last week's episode of our season 2 wrap up. So season 2 and beyond is where we're at.
Infinity and beyond.
Yeah. So I guess welcome officially to season number 3 of Supernatural Opinions. Today we are joined by Meredith, Jenn, and Berklie. Meredith, remind everyone who you are.
Hello, I'm Meredith. My pronouns are she and her, and I am still here.
Yes. New season, same Meredith.
Always the same Meredith.
Jen, remind everyone who you are.
I'm Jen. My pronouns are she, her. I'm still here, too, in this fandom specifically.
And Berklie, this is your first time with us, so please tell everyone who you are, although I'm sure most people already know you.
Hi, I am Berklie, and my pronouns are she, they, and I am happy to be here.
You are a little bit internet famous for a few things. Faking your death on fanfiction websites, beefing with Misha Collins, trying to get a worm on a string sent to the space station, amongst other things.
When you say it like that.
Should note that I've only watched like 4 of your videos, and I did that like in the 15 minutes before we started recording, so this is all new to me.
Was some of that information new?
Yeah, sounds exciting.
When you exist on the internet, things just happen, I think, sometimes, and that seems to be the case for you. But the reason that you're here is because you kind of got a little bit of internet fame explaining the Omegaverse to people, and I wanted to talk about fanfiction and Supernatural. Jen is here because she is in the midst of writing a Supernatural rewrite. It has over 500,000 words. So yeah, let's get started.
Yeah.
As someone who took like 8 years to write a book that's like 300,000 words, I am amazed at you.
It's funny too, KJ we were talking about how they finished up the season 2 wrap up for this show, and I'm finishing up season 2 of the rewrite, and I'm looking at it because I published like the rewrite of What Is and What Should Never Be, and then hit over 500,000 words for the series, and then hit over 1 million words on like the AO3 profile. And I had to look at it and stare at it and be like, over half of this was because of Supernatural.
Yep.
And also a non-insignificant amount was also RPF. So we're really cycling through, it is what it is. Anyway.
No, I'm going to try and get through talking about your own individual projects so that we can stop talking about ourselves, because it also makes me deeply uncomfortable to talk about my own stuff. So I get it. But Jen, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your fanfic.
Yeah. So did you guys watch Bo Burnham's Inside?
Yeah.
Not yet.
There's this point where this sounds so stupid to compare it, but I started writing that particular story because I was enraged with how the show ended. I wasn't in the Supernatural fandom for 8-9 years. Did not give a single care in the world about this silly little show, after high school, early college, whatever. And then I hear the whisperings of despair, literally. And I hear how this story fucking ended. And I'm like, this sucks. This is so stupid. Got COVID, was stuck in the house for 3 weeks, and I'm like, I have nothing to do. I was so bored. I'm like, hold on. This is a thought I've had since I was 16. I'm like, what if we could just make this show like less sad, you know? And so that was like the whole thing. But the basic summary of it is right after 1518, Cass wakes up and he doesn't know like who he is. He seems to have some strange powers, doesn't know he's an angel, but it's 2003 and he ends up starting to go on hunts because he knows that, you know, the supernatural exists and everything. He runs into Stanford Aradine. They become friends. They get into a relationship, and then it's reworking seasons 1 and 2 from that perspective. And then once season 2 ends, a lot of stuff is going to change. And then season 3 is like the last leg of it. And then that one we get into a lot more of altering the world around them, kind of. So
I had this plan in my brain that I have been putting off reading that fic because I was planning on writing my own supernatural rewrite, and I didn't want to be too influenced by anyone else. And then I decided I wasn't going to do that. And so then I was like, kind of in the back of my brain, I'm like, I will read that before we get to this. And then last week, like literally like 7 days ago, I was like, oh, that's next weekend. I guess I'm not going to read that fic between now and then.
KJ, you know, I've heard that story is over 500,000 words. So if you could not speed read that, I do understand. Actually, I can't read, fun facts, I can't read like long stories. I look at like anything over 20,000 words. I'm like, I'm not reading that. That's too long. So I literally made a Cliff Notes version on AO3. So I'm like, here, guys, if you want the summary, read this.
That is dedication. I am so impressed by you.
It's because I hate reading long stories so bad.
Okay.
It makes no sense.
Berk, how do you feel about like fic length? Like where do you fall? I know you like to read everything in kind of like one go, which I am the same usually.
Yeah, so I love longer fics. Like, I'll read one shots, like, whatever. The length of it really does not matter that much to me, but even if it is, like, a 100, 150,000 word story, whatever, I'm still gonna read it today. It's when it gets over that, like, 150, closer to, like, the 200,000 mark is when I do have to break it up to a couple of days. But realistically, I think the longest fic I've ever read was, like, 500,000 words, and it took me 3 days to get through. I read quickly. That doesn't mean I absorb everything, though. I'm really bad about just assuming that I have all the details and I don't, and so I do end up getting very confused pretty often, but I don't know how to read it the other way, so.
I was listening to you talk about reading fanfic, and every time you said, like, this is how I read fanfic, I'm like, oh, check. That's exactly how I read.
Yeah, I have to reread things all the time because, like, I want to get these details, but they're just not coming to me that easily.
Something I also want to know is, like, alternate forms of fan fiction have become increasingly popular lately, like podfics. Is that something either of you have any experience with?
Yeah, I love podfics. I love listening to them. It's just so nice because sometimes it's like I want to read, but I can't because I have to be doing something else. So like with the whole Wormageddon thing right now, I've been listening to a lot of podfics just so that I can like still be reading something, or well, it's reading any like audiobook or anything like that is reading, but I can like still have my hands and like focus on addressing the envelope thing.
Jen, how about you?
Yeah, I was looking through Spotify. I'm like, which one is it? And making it up as we go is like the name of it, but it's I believe just one person who will go through and make podfics. I don't listen to too many, but she did adapt one of mine, and so I'm like, I gotta listen to this, you know, which was kind of fun. Someone else, I think, a while ago started to do a podfic of my story, but I think they fell out of the fandom. But I got the file, so sometimes if I'm bored or feeling really sad because season 2 is really depressing, I'm like, let me listen to Stanford era, these two, and then. But I think probably I'll go back into it because I feel like just sitting down and reading hasn't been working for me lately. So listening might actually be something I'm gonna do more in the future.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is obviously because I make this podcast, so audio is becoming a medium I'm a lot more familiar with. I've been wanting to make a podfic for a while. I have a fic idea I've been sitting with, you know, on top of the other like 3 fics I'm currently writing. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's not like I spend like 20 hours a week making this podcast or anything. It's fine. I have time, definitely. Sitting and reading is also something that doesn't work well for me lately, and so I've been doing audiobooks a lot more. So I was just wondering what you guys thought about, fanfic. What are some favorite fanfic tropes that y'all have? Because I know I have mine. I told everyone not to prepare for anything.
Actually,
so.
I was talking about this on Twitter. Do you guys ever run into those things where they're like very specific situations that happen in a fanfic and you're like, ooh, I don't even know if this has like a trope name, but it pops up like one, like enough that you're like, well, when it happens.
Yes.
You know, like someone was talking about like for Supernatural specifically, they're like, oh, I love when like Dean has a coming out moment with his mom or with Sam. And then I was talking about I like really bad first dates where like someone gets stood up and then the other half of the ship like notices that they got stood up on a date, and so then they swoop in to like try and make them feel better, and then they hit it off.
That's gotta have
like,
a name.
Okay, I really hope so, because I like reading that too.
Yeah, it must have a name, but I don't think it's like popular enough. I also think like it depends on the fandom. Like when I was like super into Marvel and stuff, it would always be like the secret identity thing, but then that's a little less, I'm like less into that with like Supernatural. But I did read like a few good ones that kind of play with that, but it's not like my go-to for Supernatural.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
But love a good case fic though. I feel like that's me right now.
Case fics are so great. For the longest time, I didn't read anything set in canon universe. And it's like Supernatural was the only fandom I did that with, where I just like AUs only. But I've been getting into like actually, obviously not canon compliant, but like canon set fics. So many good ones out there. Why did I deprive myself for so long? Just because I don't know what I had against canon.
That's how I used to feel about AUs. I used to really love canon compliant fics, and then I started reading AUs, and I'm like, why was I skipping all of these coffee shop AUs that exist?
Right, there's something really cool about like loving characters and getting to see them interact with a different environment, with different roles.
Yeah, and also, as we know, with Supernatural, or even just Dean Cast, which I know I read a lot of, Berklie reads a lot of, we've all dabbled in to some extent. There are over 100,000 fics, so you really can like pick and choose.
Yeah, I think that's why I've been in a lot of fandoms. I've read fanfic from quite a few fandoms, but I've really settled into like almost exclusively reading Supernatural fanfic. I think because there is so much of it.
Yeah, I can only get into like one fandom at a time, which is also, now that I've been trapped here, I know I need to finish this story. And I'm like, I have another fucking year until it's done. I know it. And so people are like, watch Stranger Things, Jen, watch this, do that. And I'm like, I can't get into another fandom, or else I will abandon like this story, this fandom. For some reason, I can't like focus on more than one at a time. So I have to have like blinders on.
I'm exactly the same way. I get the one fandom and the one fandom only for 6 months to a year. It's like the man upstairs just says, you can't consume any new media. I am so sorry, except he's not apologetic. So the one I had before this was Harry Potter, and then for some reason, like back in February, I was like, all right, we're done with this now. It's going to be Supernatural again. And so nothing happened to like trigger it. It was, my brain was like, all right, on to the next one, and it's this. You're going to get so deep into it, and see how deep I got into it, just kind of on accident. But
yeah, you've acquired a few fandom related tattoos. Like it's permanently on your body now.
That's dedication.
I want a fandom related tattoo, so I get it. I would also like that permanently on my body. Yeah, Harry Potter was a special interest of mine for like most of my like childhood and teen years until like 2020-ish. And then, you know, some J.K. Rowling stuff happened at a like very, honestly, like a moment that I was more having myself outside of that. And then like that happened as well. And I was like, okay, this is my childhood and it's done now.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I got really back into Percy Jackson and really back into Supernatural. And I've been Supernatural all the way through. And then, you know, Supernatural ended and I finished Supernatural and I went to bed. It was like 3 a.m. because I binged season 15 in 2 days. And that was a mistake, but it's not my fault. I didn't know what was happening. Anyway, so I woke up the next morning and went, I'd like to make a podcast about that. And
here we are.
That was like a year and a half ago. I've committed to doing this until like 2030-ish. So yeah, I get it. I get not being able to move on.
Yeah.
Here we are.
I'm the same way though. I have the same cycle. Like I'll get into a new fandom and I'll hyperfixate on it for a bit and then it'll still be there, but like kind of in the background as I move on to something new. I have like whole phases. My family remembers them. They're probably traumatized. Just say Phantom of the Opera around my mom and she's like, oh gosh, no, not Meredith.
Yeah, the first time I got into Supernatural, I annoyed my dad so much that he, Tumblr was the thing at the time, so he was like, I'm gonna make a Misha Collins fan blog because you won't shut up about how much you love Misha Collins. So
that's incredible.
But then on the other hand, my mom also loves Misha Collins. She's like, oh, I love Misha. You know, she'll follow him on whatever, and she's like, we're friends on social.
the first time I got into it, it was like 2013 when Super Hulock was like at its peak. And I went into Supernatural fully expecting Castiel to be canon. And so when I caught up, what season was it? 2013, like season 8, I think. And I was like, so they lied to me. They didn't lie to me. But I guess I lied to myself just throughout the entire thing. And then when I got to college in 2015, I was like, okay, I'm an adult now. I can't be in fandom anymore. I can reinvent myself. I'm not going to be the cringy fandom kid. I'm not going to be the weird. And yet again, see how that went for me.
And we're still here.
I think that's interesting too, just because like I feel a lot of people have that sort of running commentary where they're like, oh, I read fan fiction when I was younger, but I'm gonna stop at some point, right? I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna grow out of this, right? Completely. I don't know. I feel like a lot of us have that in our heads. I've definitely seen so many TikToks about that as well.